There was a wooden plane propping open a tool shed door outside a farmhouse in central Wisconsin this spring. Split-looking, black with old oil and dust. Split-looking, black with old oil and dust. And the family had already hauled two just like it to the burn pile. And that one had a tiny maker's stamp on the toe nobody had bothered to read in 60 years. It sold for a little over $1,400. And $1,400 out of a door prop with a burn pile smoking 20 feet away. And old woodworking tools are the thing I never walk past twice. And old woodworking tools are the thing I never walk past twice. Today we're counting down 10 old wood planes and chisels sitting in workshops and toolboxes right now, worth a lot more than anybody guesses. And I'll show you exactly how to tell the ordinary ones from the ones carrying real money. Before we get rolling, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Ohio, Tennessee, Ireland, doesn't matter. I read every single one. Because that's the tool that cost me the worst trade I ever made. Let me be straight before we count anything. Most old planes and chisels are $15 to $40 tools. Out of a full toolbox at a farm sale, most of what's in there is exactly what it looks like. Worn out shop iron nobody wanted enough to throw away. That's the honest math. That's the honest math. The 10th one is why I still stop at every yard sale with a workbench in the driveway. Here's why the old ones beat the new ones, and it isn't sentiment. Before machine shops took over completely, plane irons were forged from real high carbon steel and hand tempered by somebody who could feel when it was right. Wooden plane bodies were seasoned beech or apple wood, dried for years before a toolmaker ever touched it. So the body wouldn't warp under a man's palm for the next 50 years. What replaced all that after the war was stamped sheet metal and green lumber. And two things tell you what you're holding. First, weight and feel. Old steel has a density to it, a coldness in the hand that cheap modern steel doesn't have. Second, read the maker's mark. On a metal plane, it's cast into the bed behind the frog. On a wooden one, it's stamped into the toe, and sometimes on the iron itself. Two quick dating rules before we start. A wooden-bodied plane with a screw-adjustable metal frog set into the sole is called a transitional plane. And those bridge the wood era into the metal era, generally 870s to 890s. A wooden plane with no metal parts at all except the iron and a wedge is older still and usually pre-870. And on metal planes, the shape of the lateral adjustment lever and the patent dates cast into the bed will date it within a few years if you know what to look for. Number 10. The common Stanley bench plane, a No or No 5, the kind sitting in half the garages in this country. Most of these, made from the 1940s onward, are exactly what they look like. A $20 to $40 user plane. But Stanley's earliest production, what collectors call Type 1 through Type 6, roughly between 1867 and 1888, used a distinctive kidney-shaped hole in the lever cap instead of the later round hole. And the frog casting has a raised ring around the adjustment screw that later types dropped. At a rummage sale in Beloit, Wisconsin, a folding table had 4 old Stanleys at $5 apiece. 3 were ordinary 1950s production. The 4th had the kidney-shaped lever cap hole and a low knob front handle unique to the earliest runs. That one brought $340. Check the lever cap hole shape. Check the front knob height against a type study. And check the frog casting for the raised ring. Ordinary mid-century Stanleys run $20 to $50. Verified Type 1 through 6 examples bring $150 to $400 and up, depending on size. Number 9. Miller's Falls Planes out of Miller's Falls, Massachusetts. Everybody chases Stanley and walks right past Miller's Falls, sitting on the same shelf, which is exactly the opportunity. Miller's Falls made planes every bit as good, some collectors argue better machine, and their numbering system runs roughly parallel to Stanley's, a Miller's Falls No. 9 corresponds to a Stanley No. 4, for instance. The tell is the cast lettering on the frog reading Miller's Falls in full, plus a distinctive fluted or ribbed lever cap on their premium lines. At an estate outside Rockford, Illinois, I bought a tool chest for $40, mostly for the chisels inside. In the bottom was a Miller's Falls No. 14, their large jointer plane, complete with the original box. It sold for $265. Check for the full Miller's Falls casting. Check the lever cap style against their premium versus economy lines. And check that the iron still carries the Miller's Falls stamp and hasn't been swapped for a generic replacement. Common Miller's Falls planes run $30 to $80. Premium models with original box, $150 to $300. Number 8. Stanley Transitional planes, the wood-bottomed ones with a metal frog and adjustment mechanism bolted into the top. These get dismissed constantly because they look like a mule of a tool. Neither fully wood nor fully metal, and most woodworkers today have no use for them. That's exactly why they're cheap to find and why a clean, unwarped example is worth chasing. The wood sole has to be dead flat with no cracks radiating from the mounting screws, because that's where these fail. At a barn sale near Dubuque, a bushel basket Iowa held 6 transitional planes marked "Take the lot" for $10. 5 had cracked or warped soles. 1, A Stanley No 27 was flat as a countertop and still had its original iron.
It sold for $110. Check the sole for flatness with a straight edge. Check around the mounting screws for hairline cracks.
And check that the iron matches the plane's size and maker.
Common transitionals run $15 to $40. Clean examples with original irons, $80 to $150.
Number 7. Wooden molding planes, the narrow profile planes that cut a specific decorative shape into trim and furniture edges instead of a flat surface. A shop might have owned 200 of these, one for every profile a carpenter needed. And most survive today as a boring row of sticks nobody can identify. The value lives entirely in two things: the maker's stamp on the toe and how unusual the profile is.
A common quarter round or OG profile from a mass producer is a $5 to $15 plane.
An unusual profile, a complex crown molding, or a hollow and round pair from a known regional
is a
maker.
Different animal entirely. At an auction outside Galena, Illinois, a barrel of 40 molding planes sold as one lot for $8.
Buried in the middle was a complex OG profile stamped by a small Pennsylvania maker active only a handful of years.
It brought $175 on its own once identified.
Check the toe stamp for a maker name and location. Check the profile against a reference guide for rarity.
And check the wedge and iron are original to that specific plane. Common molding planes run $5 to $20 each. Rare profiles or regional makers, $75 to $250.
Number 6. Ohio Tool Company planes out of Columbus, Ohio. Ohio Tool made both metal and wood-bodied planes for decades, and their stamp, Ohio Tool made both metal and wood-bodied planes for decades, and their stamp, a distinctive oval reading Ohio Tool Co. With the city beneath gets confused for a generic hardware brand by people who don't know better.
In a corn crib outside Muscatine, Iowa,
a jointer plane nearly 3 feet long sat under decades of dust and used at some point as a shelf brace. The oval Ohio Tool stamp was still crisp on the toe.
It sold to a plane collector for $190.
Check for the oval Ohio Tool Co. Stamp, check the sole for splits, common on the longer jointer length planes, and check that the iron carries a matching Ohio Tool stamp rather than a replacement. Common Ohio Tool planes run $20 to $50.
Long jointers and clean examples, $120 to $250.
Quick pause. If you're getting something out of this, hit subscribe.
I put brine I put one of these up every week, and the next one might match a tool sitting on your own bench right now. Number 5, and here's the trade I still think about. Sargent planes, their premium VBM line, short for Victor Bench and Molding Tools, out of New Haven, Connecticut. Sargent competed directly with Stanley and in some respects out-engineered them, and particularly the streamlined lever cap and the adjustable throat mechanism on their better models. The stamp to look for is Sargent VBM cast into the frog, plus a distinctive teardrop-shaped lever cap, unlike anything Stanley made. At a tool swap in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, a man had a Sargent No. 414, a large jointer in the VBM line, and offered to trade me straight across for a common Stanley No. 5 I'd just picked up for $10. I said no, figured I was getting the better end, holding on to the Stanley. He turned around and sold that Sargent for $310 inside a month. I still think about that trade every time I see a teardrop lever cap. Check for the Sargent VBM casting, check the lever cap shape,
And check the throat adjustment mechanism moves freely, since that's the feature buyers pay extra for.
Common Sargent planes run $25 to $60. VBM line examples in good shape, $150 to $350. Number 4, Old Socket Chisels from makers like Buck Brothers, Witherby, and Swan, out of New England shops running back into the 1800s. The distinction that matters is socket versus tang. A tang chisel has a thin spike driven into the handle, which splits and loosens over decades. A socket chisel has a cone-shaped metal socket that the handle fits into, stronger, and generally the mark of a better, older tool. The maker's stamp runs along the flat of the blade near the handle. And on Buck Brothers in particular, the Eagle and Shield trademark is the detail collectors look for first.
At an estate sale in Freeport, Illinois, a coffee can held 11 mismatched chisels for $4.
Nine were common tang chisels, worth little. 2 were Buck Brothers socket chisels with the Eagle trademark still readable, and a Witherby with its original handle.
Sold as a small set to a tool collector for $145.
Check for socket versus tang construction. Check the blade flat for a maker's stamp.
And check the cutting edge for pitting that's eaten past the bevel,
which kills usability and value both. Common old chisels run $8 to $20 each.
Marked socket chisels from known makers. $30 to $80 each, more as a matched set.
Number 3, Stanley's Bed Rock line.
They're premium bench planes made alongside the ordinary Bailey line, but built to a tighter standard.
With a solid frog-to-body seat instead of the 2-screw wobble of the regular line.
The Bed Rock stamp reads exactly that, cast into the bed behind the frog,
And the frog itself has a distinctive flat and seamless mating surface, and you can feel with a fingernail. These get missed constantly because at a glance, a Bed Rock looks like any other Stanley.
At a farm auction outside Waterloo, Iowa, a Bed Rock No.
604 sat in a crate of common Stanleys, same size, same general look,
And priced by the auctioneer as one more $4 plane.
The Bed Rock stamp on the bed gave it away before it even crossed the block.
It brought $280.
Check for the Bed Rock casting on the bed. Check the frog seat for that flat.
Seamless fit, and check the total length and width against a Bed Rock size chart.
Ordinary Stanley Bailey planes run $20 to $60.
Bed Rock examples run $150 to $450 depending on size and condition.
Number 2, English infill planes from makers like Norris out of London. These are a different animal from anything American, a bronze or steel body packed or infilled with dense rosewood or ebony, built heavy on purpose for fine furniture work. The construction alone tells you what you're holding. Dovetailed metal sides, not cast in one piece, with the infill wood dovetailed into the body rather than screwed.
The Norris name is stamped on the lever cap or the iron itself in a distinctive oval. At an estate outside Galesburg, Illinois, a small,
Unusually heavy plane sat in a box marked MISC. MISC. Tools, $2 each. The dovetailed construction and rosewood infill stop me before I even read the stamp. Norris, oval mark, complete and original.
It sold to a specialist dealer for $950. Check for dovetailed metal body construction. Check the infill wood species.
Rosewood and ebony are the premium choices.
and check the lever cap or iron for the Norris oval stamp. Genuine Norris infill planes run $400 to $1,200 depending on model and condition.
With rare panel planes going higher still. Number one, and this one hides best of all. Stanley's No. bench plane, the smallest one they ever regularly produced. Barely 5.5 inches long, built more as a specialty tool than an everyday user. Most woodworkers in its own era considered it impractical and didn't buy many,
which means survivors today are genuinely scarce.
Especially in the earliest production types with the kidney-shaped lever cap hole we talked about back at number 10. In a toolbox, it looks almost like a toy. Small enough that people assume it's a child's plane or a salesman's sample and price it accordingly.
Is at almost nothing. At a farm estate near Nauvoo, Illinois,
a small plane sat in the bottom of a nail keg, mistaken for exactly that, with a toy. Full-size iron, full Stanley castings, just built miniature.
it sold at a specialist tool auction for $2,750.
Check the overall length against a size chart before assuming it's a toy. Check for full,
functional Stanley castings rather than a simplified toy casting, and check the type features,
lever cap shape and frog casting, to place it in the earliest, most valuable production runs.
Common later production No. 1 planes run $400 to $800.
Early Type 1 through 4 examples in good condition have sold well past $2,500.
Now the honest part. A cracked wooden plane body, especially through the mouth where the iron passes,